Hello folks, over here having a great day today. Today I want to take a look at Abraham Merritt's The Ship of Ishtar. This is one of the classics of fantasy. It's his biggest and best well-known work. For those of you who may not know, Abraham Merritt started out in the about 10 years prior to this. It was published in the mid-20s. One of his first major short stories is The Moonpool, which was so successful he actually wrote a follow-up novel to it. After that, he really wrote a lot more novels than he did other things. He was one of the most popular writers. He wrote a number of books out there. We've actually reviewed some of the things for him already. And I've actually taken a look at this story for you in part. It was a part of my sort of women in pulp era, and I use this as sort of an example of some of the issues of women in pulp era, and specifically that they're kind of just two major archetypes. Also, there's this sort of context of men being men of the era and doing things like not listening to what a woman wants to do and so forth, and you saw that in this story too. But today what I want to do, and I'll actually link you to the Women in the Pulp Era if you want to take a look below, where I take a look specifically at the main woman character in this story, as well as our main character too. But what I want to do now is kind of give this a good, strong review. It is incredibly influential. It's an important story to read for fantasy. Abraham Merritt was a big name during the time. He wrote a lot of things. He's not as well known now, although he is in the Hall of Fame for science fiction. He is a well-known writer. He's been influential. His stuff, for example, is listed in Appendix N by Garrett Gygax as one of the influences for Dungeons and Dragons. So, you know, one of the modern games that's out there has gotten its influence from Merritt. And Merritt has a lot of interesting things. His characters are people of action. They take actions. It's very much a good versus evil sort of pulp era story where you have people wearing the white hats versus people wearing the black. Not literally, but figuratively. There's good, there's bad, and such, and good people act like good people, and bad people act like bad people. That's the pulp era to a T. His works, he's not the worst at doing this, but his works can be a little purple at times. They can have some purplish prose, they can have some additional, too many adjectives and so forth, although he's not nearly the biggest defender of that. But again, all the different things that people may come into and say, coming in 100 years later with an Abraham Merritt story, and they may say, hey, look, this is harder to read now. It's not, the way that his main character treats women isn't something that's appropriate to today. You're absolutely right, you know. But it was also a product of its time. It was heavily chronicled, heavily awarded, and heavily influential. A lot of things that are going to follow take their beat from Ship of Ishtar. So let's take a look at it. In Ship of Ishtar, it's going to open up with our friend who's an archaeologist on the side. And he is going to get this delivery of this device from the ancient Assyrian Empire, which he has a fascination with and he's kind of an expert in. As he starts to open it up and take a look and see what's in it, he sees that there's actually this ship that's suspended in this bottle and in this device, and as he focuses in on it, he's going to get sucked in, and he's going to be sucked into a world. And basically this world is a world that was in stasis, but our main character is going to be drawn into it, and as he arrives in it, basically he's going to be the major point that puts the entire world out of balance, and by doing that he is going to allow basically the plot to continue, things to continue, and so forth by being sucked into this. So basically the background story on this, by the way, is incredibly evocative. This is a ship that's sailing the seas between the worlds, if you will. It's been locked in time as a punishment. It was Nergal and Ishtar are two rival gods. Nergal is kind of the evil god. Ishtar is the good god in Merritt's world building. They had some people, some priests and priestesses. A priest of Nergal and a priestess of Ishtar fell in love, and so their gods punished them by sending them over to this boat where they're on, and the boat is locked, and in fact it's actually, the boat is divided down to half. So one half of the boat is Ishtar's half, and the other half is Nergal's half, where Nergal's followers are at. And so literally they can't cross over from one to the other. But our main character can, because he's just a modern American person, right? So he can cross over, and by doing so. Now when he arrives, he's going to arrive on the women's side. They think he's a spy sent by Nergal, because he's a man, and they think that this is a plot by Nergal to undermine their authority. They'll actually capture him, throw him in prison, and so forth. While he does that, he will actually be engaged to the woman that will be the major female, the character of his love interest, and so forth. She's very dismissive of him and mean towards him and so forth. And he basically says that he's going to get his revenge on her. Later on, when she falls in love with him, she offers himself to him, and he will take her physically. He basically says, "You don't offer, I take," and he'll basically just grab her and throw her over his shoulders and then take her down to the captain's quarters and then make love to her there. So he won't as a way of getting revenge for her and so forth. And I'm sure that was a scene that was applauded by many people, but that's obviously something in the Me Too era. Obviously, a woman offers herself to you sexually, and then you instead you grab her and say, "You don't offer yourself, I take you." That's, it's a clever phrase and so forth, but as a characterization, right, we understand where the issue with that comes from. But that's okay. It's a small part of the plot, and again, we've talked about it before as an artifact sort of its era, but I do want to make sure we're aware of it. We'll go with eyes wide open too. But basically what's going to end up happening throughout the course of this story, you're going to have a lot of these different major plot devices is going to happen, and our main character is going to move about from one to the other. He's going to join the side of Ishtar against Nergal, and basically end up getting them out of their area and basically free them. And then there's going to be a lot of other adventures too. It's going to be thrown all overboard. He's going to have to come back. He's got some friends on the boat too that he comes from off the boat. So there's going to be a lot of things that happen in this story. But basically, again, his arrival on the scene is going to be what sort of sets things in motion and continues them until the plot line progresses. Now, I love this idea of this locked ship in balance between the two forces with literally, divided down the middle where one side is Nergal. It's almost like your kid's bedroom in like some bad episode of a sitcom from the 80s or the 70s where they were not getting along, so they divided the line in half. They put tape down the halfway through, and this is your side of the bedroom, this is your side of the bedroom. It feels like that, only in this more of a sort of an epic, a mythic feel to it. This idea, though, that of a major character coming from our day and getting sent back, while it was something that had been started with things like John Carter, who got sent over to Mars and such, the idea, though, that this would happen in this particular context, in a mythical, sort of more fantasy sense, is not something that was really popular at the time. Abraham Merritt really popularizes it. And in fact, there are short stories that I've read since then that have taken Merritt's central idea and really worked with it. Also, this idea of the lost archaeological artifact, the ship that they were punished by the gods from long ago. There's a lot of these sort of things that Merritt's going to inspire. Again, this is heavily read, and it's heavily influential on a lot of things that are going to follow. And they're going to follow immediately right after because it's such a big selling book. And this is Abraham Merritt's big, giant pièce de résistance. This is what puts him on the map in a major way. This is the book that people still go back to. This is a book it's a big book. So I'll go ahead and just end my review there. Again, I've talked more about the relationship and so forth in Women in the Pulp Era, so I'll kind of leave that part. But I do like the book. I do like Merritt's writings. I do think he's on all four cylinders. But I think he's firing perfectly at this time because by now it's been about 10 years into his career, and he has written a lot of short stories, novels, and such by now. So by now he's gotten to a place where he's actually a much good writer, a much better writer and such. So you get those ideas and context from him. He's better at pacing. It's a much better paced book than some of his previous ones were, and so as a result, it's just a better read. And so if you're going to go back and read Merritt, you're just going to read one book, this is probably the one you're going to want to go read first. And then if you like it, you can go over to some other things. Although I think the Moon Pool's still better. But again, because it's fresh, it's fun, it's interesting, it has an energy that some of his later works don't always have. And we've also taken a look at some of his other books too. But there you go, there's the Ship of Ishtar. I'll link you to it so that you can go check it out. Let me know what you think about it. Did you agree or disagree with my video? Did you like it more? Did you like it less? I'm happy to engage with you more about that. I also, hey, if you enjoyed this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more classics to follow. I try to find a lot of these sort of classics in fantasy, science fiction, and horror and unpack them for you as a part of this channel, or either things you've heard about but never got a chance to read, like the Ship of Ishtar, or things that you may never have heard about before. So I like to unpack those for you as a part of this channel. And hey, if you watch this video all the way to the end, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day. We all have busy days, busy lives. The fact that you spent this time with me, that's very humbling, and I appreciate that. So thanks again.